But I think the development of full artificial intelligence would spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
With the rockets or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. They were too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 6, 3, 2, 9, 7.
Media doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, DLive, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand on the Underground Media Network. Tonight, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. It's New Year's Eve, and we're doing the thing, right? Hanging out and doing what we do on the holidays, the Troubled Minds work ethic plays, and we're going to just chug straight on through. Because I recognize we may have a skeleton crew tonight, I'm going to try and aim for a little bit of a shorter show. So we're going to go 2 hours tonight, and just in case, we don't have all the engagement. I know everybody's out there partying hard like it's 1999, but it's not. It's going to be 2025 instead. But Happy New Year. Got a great show planned, and we're going to have do all the normal stuff, just kind of cut it short an hour and let you guys go celebrate into the night. And I will do the same with Mrs. Strange here in Las Vegas. Well, you know me. Let's get to the wild ideas, shall we? If you want to be part of the show, we are taking your calls as usual at 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Okay, where do we begin? This one's one of those narratives. Actually, I know where we begin. We begin right here. Now, the wild part about this is sort of the addendum to the last conversation we had. And if you recognize, a lot of these shows do really kind of flow into each other as part of the larger context, a larger great conversation, because I think it's important to consider, well, not just what it means to be human in the current space, but what it meant to be human, thousands of years ago, or what it means to be human in the future, and sort of break down those ideas. And we'll start here. We'll start with this, and I brought this up last show, but this is incredibly important as part of this, not just what we do, but what Troubled Minds does. But Brian Johnson, many of you know him as that futurist that's always taking the vitamins, getting the weird plasma transfusions and all the stuff. But he tweeted this on December 26th, and I did bring this up last show, but it's exactly this, right? Storytelling remains the most powerful technology. And yes, exactly. And so we're going to do a little bit of a sort of fractured storytelling tonight by looking at the past and the future in some bizarre ways, sort of making some odd connections, okay? So as usual, all the disclaimers apply, which means specifically and directly that there are no truths to be found here, all right? If you're here for truth, you're in the wrong place. There is no truth here. There are just ideas, just kind of looking at the world a different way, so when you go back and look at the real world, you recognize what's happening to you, okay? Meaning the narrative building. So we start here. Storytelling remains the most powerful technology. And I have to agree. I absolutely have to agree, okay? And where do we begin? Let's begin here with the actual question. Now, the question we have tonight is specifically this. And this is from livescience.com. All these links will be in the description down below. And that's that. If you guys are interested in more of these ideas, want to dig a little deeper where this information came from. But Live Science posted this yesterday, published this yesterday. Could we ever retrieve memories from a dead person's brain? Yeah, I was like, hell yeah, that seems like a troubled mind style conversation right there. So I saw this yesterday, grabbed it and was like, okay, let's roll with this. This is amazing. So basically, look, if we're talking about memory retrieval, not just, let's say, from necromancy, which is where we're going to talk a little bit about necromancy tonight, which the definition of necromancy would be this, for those uninitiated. It is the conjuration of the spirits of the dead for purposes of magically revealing the future or influencing the course of events. Okay, sorcery, necromancers, right, all the stuff kind of plays. Or divining information, right, from ancient spirits. But in this particular case, we're looking at this from a scientific perspective, or of course, we're combining those ideas. So could we ever retrieve memories from a dead person's brain? And so this goes on to say, this article in Live Science, which is fascinating as hell, it says specifically that we're kind of close to being able to do this, because I'll read the intro because it's probably quite a bit better straight from the write-up. But just to frame the question and where we start, because this goes all the way back to ancient Egypt, I think. Again, just a kind of narrative building here and kind of plucking some interesting things out of the ether to tell a compelling tale. Now, remember this too, regarding actual mummification practices of ancient Egypt. We know that in the canoptic jars, they pulled their organs out, okay, and they packaged them and they preserved them and then kept them basically for that journey into the afterlife. But the wild part about it is that they supposedly took a hook and pulled their brain out through their nose, through what's the I can't remember the term. I came across the term. There's an actual scientific term for that. But then we're told they disposed of the brain completely. Just threw it out. Like, well, we don't need that. That's not part of the sort of the soul ascension process or the afterlife or anything like that. And that's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because clearly and obviously, the brain, the center of the brain space is something to be protected. In the old days, right? An arrow to the head would have done it. That would have been good game. It's a wrap, right? And so for the ancient Egyptians to just kind of throw it out and say, well, it's not necessary. It's a life thing. It's not an afterlife thing. And not really recognize that there were memories held there makes my tinfoil tingle a little bit. So a little speculative dreaming here. And so we'll begin with the write-up, because I think it's probably easiest to just do it that way and get us right into where we need to be. But the write-up is amazing if you guys are interested in this. These AI tools just keep getting better and better. But what's up, guys? I see you there in the chat. So the idea of extracting memories from the deceased brain represents one of humanity's oldest desires, to communicate with the dead, as I described, necromancy, right? While this seems like pure fantasy, recent technological advances suggest it might be possible, though not in the way ancient necromancers imagined. Current research in neuroscience indicates that memories leave physical traces in the brain's structure through synaptic connections and protein changes. These traces could theoretically persist for some time after death, similar to how a computer's hard drive retains data even when powered down. Scientists have already demonstrated the ability to reconstruct basic images from brain activity in living subjects using fMRI technology. The leap to reading a dead brain isn't as vast as it might seem. Now, this is where the Egyptians come in. So the ancient Egyptians believed they could preserve memories through mummification, keeping the Ka, or the life force, that's just spelled Ka, as you would expect, intact within the preserved brain and body. This concept parallels modern cryogenic preservation, where some hope future technology might revive and restore their consciousness. We talk about this quite often. The difference lies in methodology, replacing spiritual ritual with technological intervention. If we could develop sufficiently advanced scanning technology, perhaps utilizing quantum sensors or yet unknown detection methods, we might be able to map the physical structure of a preserved brain in enough detail to reconstruct the encoded information. This would be less like speaking with ghosts or actual necromancy, and more like recovering data from damaged storage media. The ancient magicians weren't entirely wrong about that possibility. They simply lacked the technological framework to understand how it might actually work. Okay? All right. So that puts us where we need to be. Get a quick word from our sponsor. In this case, it is Human Inspiration. Troubled Minds on a New Year's Eve. Hope you guys are well tonight, just doing what we do and hanging out. Going to go a couple hours tonight and take your calls. So if you guys want to call early, since we're cutting it a little bit short, you're welcome to jump in here at any time. But I've got a wild tale to tell because it gets into a black moon. It gets into some quantum resonance. It gets into some wild things. But here we go. More Troubled Minds coming up in exactly 1 minute. This is brought to you by Human Inspiration. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. In a world increasingly shaped by AI, Human Inspiration remains the beating heart of creativity. Alien Skin by Tremble, a hauntingly beautiful piano ballad, reminds us that while algorithms can mimic art, the raw, unfiltered emotions of human experience are irreplaceable.
So here I sit, locked in my room again.
Written and composed by Jesse Ian in collaboration with Todd Smith, this progressive masterpiece delves into the depths of internalized grief and the silent toll of artistic compromise. As AI reshapes our reality, Alien Skin stands as a testament to the timeless power of human emotion and the complex beauty that only true artists can evoke. Experience the haunting beauty of Alien Skin by Tremble and support Human Inspiration. Available now on iTunes. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Let us continue, shall we? We're talking Black Moon Necromancy tonight. Rediscovering memory in the quantum quiet. What does all that mean? It sounds complicated, and it kind of is, but it's basically storytelling. It's looking forward into, well, what the past might bring us with some of these ancient ideas. And so we left off there with that whole bit of sort of resurrecting memories from a dead brain, which again, we started with, livescience.com has a great article about this. I'm not going to read it. It's a little more important to dig right into the wild stuff. Now, so the intersection here, of course, is we're dealing with magic, okay? Ancient magic, necromancy, except as we know, the intersection of ancient magical thinking and modern neuroscience echoes, which we bring up often, Arthur C. Clarke's observation about advanced technology appearing magical. So what the Egyptian priests attempted through ritual and spiritual belief, future scientists might achieve through quantum scanning and neural mapping. The fundamental human desire remains unchanged, only the tools themselves have evolved. Now, which brings us to, so we're talking about, again, back to the actual situation of mummification in ancient Egypt, okay, with the pharaohs and whatnot. They just threw the brain out, okay? That's what we're told. They took all the rest of the organs, the heart, they believe the heart was the center of everything as far as humans go, and, you know, it's a good guess. It's definitely one of them, but the brain certainly is kind of what animates the puppet in a lot of cases, right? At least sort of is the decision-making center. And again, I don't know, it seems strange to me that probably one of the most important organs in the body, they just toss out like, meh, don't need it, get it out of here and do something with it. And so my theory is, at least sort of squint your eyes conceptually, that they did do something with it. It just wasn't, as you would expect. Okay. And so put that in your back pocket. We will get back to that a little bit later here, but okay. So I'm just checking my notes. Hold on 1 second here. Okay. So now the black moon, where this fits in. Because, of course, if you guys know, the black moon was last night. We are in a black moon cycle here, which is a once in a black moon, right? This is from WGRZ.com, links in the description. The black moon, so there will be a rare black moon on December 30th. That was last night. But you're not likely going to notice anything that unusual if you look at the sky on Monday. Most people are familiar with blue moons, or at least the phase once in a blue moon, the phrase once in a blue moon. Well, a black moon is the opposite. While a blue moon represents a second full moon in a month, a black moon is the second new moon in a month. It could also mean the third new moon and when there's a season with 4 new moons. And so the interesting part about this is an actual black moon only happens once every 2 years. So this is not something that it's even a little more rare than a blue moon itself. Okay. So cool. All right. Right on. How does that make any sense, Mike? What are you talking about? Well, I don't know. We talk about the moon as part of a larger context of the cycles in women, of course, the tides, and even some of the things that we probably don't recognize within ourselves. That'll on a full moon that the ERs fill up and the cops are busy and all kinds of wild stuff happening. Sort of that lycanthropy bit, right? The old werewolf aspect of it. But also, what if there's something else happening, something more quantum, something more consciousness, something more entangled, something to the effect of like electromagnetic properties happening during these rare alignments, okay? And so that's the idea as we begin. And, or even something like since it is the dark side of the moon we're kind of dealing with here during a new moon, is something like a natural cosmic Faraday cage effect. Now, why does that fit? It's complicated, so let's just get right back into this. So the Egyptian practice of removing the brain through the nasal, so keep your mind on that. We'll get back to that in a second. The Egyptian practice of removing the brain through the nasal cavity during mummification seems counterintuitive if preservation of memory and consciousness was the goal. Yet, this apparent contradiction might reveal a deeper understanding that we've missed. And here's the theory. The ancient Egyptians may have recognized that the physical brain was merely a vessel, not the repository of consciousness itself. A concept that aligns surprisingly well with quantum theories of consciousness that suggest our memories and awareness might exist in a field beyond physical matter. The careful preservation of other organs in canopic jars, while seemingly discarding the brain, does present this intriguing puzzle that I'm talking about. Perhaps they understood something about consciousness that we're now only rediscovering, that memory might exist in a quantum state independent of physical neural networks. And we've talked about non-local consciousness and how some of this stuff might fit, that time is a flat circle. There's a lot of ways to kind of philosophically square this and say, okay, if I squint with my mind's eye, maybe juice, drinking a lot of maybe juice here. But the brain might function more like an antenna or receiver than a storage device, okay, which kind of sets the frame for the rest of this. So don't think of it as the brain holding memories, but it's more of a entangled aspect of our reality with the cosmos, okay, something to that effect. So let's say tuning into a field of consciousness that even transcends physical death, which means if we're dealing with, let's say, bringing back the memories of ancestors through necromancy or through this new technology that they're talking about with can we retrieve memories from a dead person's brain? The brain is just a vessel itself. But what if it's that entanglement process of the memories that we could tap into and bring back anyway? But as part of that, recent experiments in quantum biology have shown that biological systems can maintain quantum coherence far longer than previously thought possible. The plot thickens, right? So if memories are encoded not just in synaptic connections, but in quantum states, they might persist in ways we don't yet understand. And the Egyptian priests could have been attempting to free this quantum information from its physical housing, believing the Ka would maintain these memory patterns in the spiritual realm. Okay, so that kind of puts us about where this tips, okay? And so the black moon as part of it might be this ritualistic aspect of celestial alignments and some other stuff, and it gets into that quantum state stuff a little bit later as we dig into this rabbit hole. But the bizarre part is when you start to look at these disparate ideas, it starts to kind of come together slowly, ever so slowly it comes together, and you got to wonder when you're talking about actual specific information and how much we know about the ancients and what they knew about some things that maybe intuitively they were really looking forward because of their magical intuition of what science would become, including maybe even knowledge of the quantum realm, which would be wild, right? Of course, all speculative, no truth to be found here. Don't forget about that. But that's okay. So where else do we got? Checks notes. One moment, please. Okay. So Black Moon, we got that. Egyptian brain removal, we got that. So another interesting part is that the Egyptians recognized that there were multiple soul states. So not just the Ka, they had something known as the Ba and the Ak, AKH. And it kind of mirrors the idea of quantum states or even superposition. So we're talking about this soul states or consciousness itself, not housed in the brain specifically, or even the heart specifically, housed in different aspects that are, you could look at this as the Trinity in some cases. You could look at this as a quantum superposition sort of aspect of consciousness itself. But they had three different soul states, and which are, of course, linked to different parts of the body, like chakras. And so, again, the plot thickens when you go back to where it seems like they were just throwing the brain away in the mummification process. It doesn't make any damn sense, does it? But anyway, so let's read this so I'm not butchering this. Let's see. Okay, so consider the possibility that Egyptian embalmers weren't simply preserving bodies, but attempting to create a technological interface between our reality and whatever realm they believed housed consciousness after death. Their elaborate mummification process, with its precise chemical treatments and ritual procedures, might have been an early attempt at what we now call brain-computer interfaces. Only they were trying to interface with something far more exotic than computers, which of course would be that quantum foam, which would be the ether, which would be the Akashic records, which would be, I don't know, beyond the veil, however you want to describe these things, right? And so, I don't know, as usual, wild stuff here is part of the larger conversation, and let me make sure I'm not leaving out any details. If I'm not making any sense, sorry about that. We got the void. Oh, and also, okay, here's another thing too that came to mind as I was doing this. I was wondering, because we have a synchronicity in New Year's, I was wondering how and why the ancient Egyptians actually celebrated New Year's. And so I looked that up, and there's a pretty cool story here. This is, again, on Live Science. I encourage you to read this if you're interested. Let me read a little bit from this, and it's interesting as hell. Here we go. So, the New Year's festival, known as Wepet Renpet, just like it sounds, Wepet Renpet, or the opening of the year, they called it in ancient Egypt, actually involved a few traditions that are still practiced today, such as giving presents to friends and a family that offered New Year's greetings. Basic, right? Normal stuff. But some customs were unique to their culture. Now, this is where it got interesting for me. I was like, oh, wow, what? For instance, the ancient Egyptians would bring images of deities out of temples so they could be regenerated by the sunlight, according to their beliefs. Kind of like charging your crystals in the sun or by moonlight, right? Something to that effect, which is wild. And I was like, what, are you kidding me? So Wepet Renpet, which was ancient Egyptian New Year's, had another key distinction. Its date changed over time because they had 365 days in the calendar. They had no leap year. So the actual New Year kind of just was all kind of willy-nilly all the time. But anyway, the important part of that to me is that they were dragging out their deities from these temples and basically letting them absorb the sunlight, recharging their energy in the sunlight. For what purpose? Which brings us all the way back around to the black moon. So it is New Year's for us. Happy New Year's Eve. And may 2025 be the best for us all. And there's a weird resonance here because we got New Year's. We've got charging their deities or representations thereof in the sunlight. But then we also have a rare black moon on New Year's Eve. So that's what kind of led me down this bizarre rabbit hole and thinking about these other wild things, which, of course, where we began tonight, you see, storytelling remains the most powerful technology, from Brian Johnson on Twitter X. And so I do think there's something here. And what does it mean? I don't know. But I do wonder if the technology itself of the mummification process was actually quite a bit more interesting than we allow it to be, right? Because, of course, we don't know the answers yet going forward. But I wonder if the ancients actually had some interesting takes on the quantum realm, non-local consciousness, and, once again, the removal of the brain may have been something similar to actually, instead of, let's say, throwing it away, they were moving it into a resonant space where the consciousness itself could be freed. You catch my meaning? In some ritual aspect. Purely speculative, but it does make me wonder and make me suspicious about these ideas. Lots of wild things happening tonight, and like I said, it's all better laid out in the write-up there, and I'll revisit that in a second here, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you guys think? What are we dealing with here? We're talking about necromancy, and the most basic question of tonight is this. Could we ever retrieve memories from a dead person's brain? And how wild does that question get? Yeah, That's it. All the rest of this stuff is definitely interesting sort of tidbits to that conversation. But what does it mean? I don't know. You tell me. Love to hear your thoughts on this. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More after the break. We got Black Moon Necromancy, Rediscovering Memory, and the Quantum Quiet, which I'll explain what that is when we return. And no calls on the line. Hop in here if you guys are interested. Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way.
Under a black moon's gaze, whispers of the night, ancient memories rise in necromantic light. Ancient memories rise in necromantic light. Melodies of the past, echoes in the void, lost tales reborn, silhouettes deploy. Spirits dance in the air, time's secrets unfold. A symphony of shadows in stories retold.
Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, DLive, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking, what if the Egyptian practice of removing the brain during mummification wasn't primitive ritual, but sophisticated quantum technology? Their precise timing with black moons, understanding of multiple soul states, and creation of specialized chambers suggests they might have discovered ways to preserve consciousness that modern science is only beginning to grasp. Now, the part with the chambers there. Now, the whole point is in removing the brain, and the theory there is that, and why it's sort of not left in the the burial chamber, is that they're freeing the brain. Okay, they're sort of removing it and not discarding it, as we're told in mainstream Egyptology these days. Instead, there's some sort of actual sort of like back to the ocean, right? The consciousness, the antenna aspect of the human mind is go be free again, right? Go back into the ocean, the waters from whence you came. And that's the idea here. So the chamber would be the skull itself. And so they're freeing the brain. Again, this is a little gory, gruesome if you guys are squeamish, earmuffs for just a second here. But you get the idea. So instead of, let's say, discarding it unceremoniously, as we're told they did, because the Egyptians didn't value the brain itself as part of that mummification and part of the larger context of the Book of the Dead and moving over into the afterlife. But the brain itself is central to a lot of things, right? Without it, we would be Muppets or worse. And so it's complicated, isn't it? And it is one of those bizarre things that doesn't seem to track when they went to all this trouble to make sure a lot of things were actually preserved properly for basically eternity, or as much eternity as they could get with these the actual mummification process. So, and of course, we've talked about this in the past, maybe preserving DNA to actually attain real resurrection in some capacity. But that would mean back to necromancy, back to, you can't just bring back Ramses the Great, because if you did, he wouldn't be the same, right? You'd take the DNA, you'd grow him from the baby and, the rest of this, and he wouldn't have the memories that he did. But what if that removal of the brain was that process, sort of taking all of their actual conscious thought, everything, their lived experience, and freeing it back into the ether in some actual elaborate ritual? Does that make sense? Okay. Anyway, so yeah, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Exactly right. Except in this case, it would be waves to quantum waves out into the quantum foam. Yeah, so I don't know. A lot of ways to look at this, a lot of wild things. Like I said, the write-up is pretty good if you're interested in these ideas. And no calls. So if you guys want to be part of the show, 702-957-1037, pop in here, and I'd love to say hi to you. And if not, I got tons of stuff to get to, because that is what I do. And I figured like I said, usually on holidays, we have kind of a skeleton crew, because people are out celebrating, doing whatever they do. They have plans with family or whatever else, but I like to try and do the shows on holidays, because I know that a lot of people don't have plans sometimes, don't have family, whatever, or removed from their family, whatever it is. I just like to kind of keep the momentum going here, and spend a little bit of time with some folks that may not have some options, if you know what I mean. And so here we go. Troubled Minds, Happy New Year. It is New Year's Eve, and we're talking not just ancient Egyptian New Year's. We're talking about sort of that mummification process, and back to the original question, could we ever retrieve memories from a dead person's brain? Which is a little bit horrifying, of course, right? Necromancy in and of itself is horrifying. But you tell me, you think there's something to this? I don't really know. But it feels to me like, at least narrative-wise, it feels like we're in a pocket a little bit. But you tell me. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. Thanks for popping in, James. I know you don't feel well. How you doing tonight? Salcedo Paranormal, what's up, brother? Go right ahead.
I'm okay. Okay enough to want to join you here. I guess it's because I've been asleep on and off for the last day or so, day and a half. So I like to actually be doing something for a change here. So if I sound stuffed up, that is correct as of right now. But
real quick, just to, let me interrupt you. Positive vibes to our friend James. Said he's better when he goes to sleep tonight and wakes up tomorrow feeling like $1 million. Everybody send him some positive juju. Sorry about that, James. Go ahead.
No problem. Thank you. I really wonder how the novel Frankenstein would fit into all this. Just because of the way in that novel, the scientist, whose name is actually Frankenstein, the being that he creates is known as Frankenstein's monster, or just doesn't really have a regular name. But of course, popular culture has sort of made the monster into being Frankenstein in a way too. But and I wonder about this because that being was made from the again, a little bit gory here, but the body parts of multiple people that were found and combined somehow, and using electricity brought back to life. And now in this novel, it wasn't this being that was created through this weird process did not have the memories of the people that it was made of. So I wonder where that fits into all this that you're talking about here tonight. If it does it at all, or if if you were to somehow hook up a brain to enough technology, modern technology, would it have anything left in it or not? And that I have no idea, but that's where my own brain goes with all this.
Yeah, well, the Frankenstein bit is a little terrifying because, back then when Mary Shelley wrote that, it wasn't clear that there was that cellular memory, right? And we've talked about that. It's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt now scientifically. And not only that, to shout out Matthew in Colorado, I know he's out there. I saw you in the chat. Happy New Year. He was telling us about he had a cornea transplant, and so he actually has, his eyes are actually different. They're different as a result of it, emotionally, meaning one tears will come out of one in one instance and not the other, and it's based sort of on that cellular memory of the other individual, which is a wild thing when you consider Frankenstein, as you're describing, is pieces, like full on pieces, like an arm, a leg, a this, a that, a torso, a head, and so suddenly that cellular memory becomes terrifying in what the monster becomes, Frankenstein's monster. And in the end, of course, he's a big lovable lug. He just wants to be loved like everybody else, but of course it ends tragically. It won't ruin it for you in an old 100-year book, but there's something to that. I think you're spot on with how this kind of fits, because recognize it's the opposite with the sort of the Egyptian mummification process. They're pulling organs out and they're removing these vessels from the body. And again, as we're told, discarding the brain, which again doesn't make any sense. But instead of piecing them together, they could have done things like this, which is a little creepy, made ancient Frankensteins and Egyptian tombs. But it definitely fits, James, in the opposite aspect. And you're definitely spot on with this. Great stuff. What else you got?
Well, and just going off of that, I wonder if, and this is all, again, the amazing thing is this is all based on a story or a novel here. But did the brain was that being, the consciousness in that brain, the driving force, and it just didn't have the memories of its past, and or maybe it did somehow, but just very vague, and it just knew that it had been basically attached to other parts of other bodies, and that was sort of maybe the subconscious drive to it. Doing what I did in the novel, just trying to find its creator for a while in that novel and everything else. So, yeah, and even with the brain itself, and then you're right about the cellular aspect of it. Then you would think that there's going to be cells, there's going to be DNA in the brain still. So you would think that would be there, but of course the brain. I'm guessing we haven't gotten to the point yet where brain transplants are a thing. So, but then what if eventually we get to that point where that does become possible? How does that work?
Exactly. Which is really, I mean, we're asking the biggest questions here because, what happens after you die? Like this is one of the, the core staples of metaphysics and these ideas of the soul and the spirit and consciousness and all the rest. I mean, we're obviously asking questions that are way above our pay grade. And so the answers, of course, are going to be highly speculative and probably incorrect, but I'm okay being incorrect as part of this. But it doesn't seem strange to you, James, that all that elaborate ritual of the mummification in ancient Egypt for pharaohs and whatnot, and then they just tossed out the brain like it was trash. That's what we're told. Like they just removed it and discarded it. Doesn't that seem weird with all the rest of the care they took to just be like, gone, we don't need this? Weird, right?
It does seem weird. I wonder if there's maybe some kind of pieces of the past there, whether it's in ancient writings or in rooms in the temples or pyramids that haven't been discovered yet, that maybe would explain that more. I would be curious about that. But yeah, it does seem weird. But in a way, I don't know. Even if they don't just completely discard the brains, I mean, if they just store them somewhere else, then that brings up another question. Where would they store them? Would they store them all in the same area? Or if they're not found in the same tombs with the rest of the body of the individual that was prepared for their afterlife, then where was it? Was it completely discarded, or was it just put somewhere that hasn't been discovered yet?
Yeah, like a brain repository where they're all together waiting to be found, which is a little even more creepy as part of it. But I mean, but the wild part of this is when you talk about quantum consciousness and sort of that entanglement effect of us with some larger aspect of where we are, how we're tuned into the cosmos and the rest of that stuff. Like that's sort of new philosophy as far as we're aware. But it seems like maybe they were maybe they knew something about this, and maybe that the ritual of the brain wasn't just discarded. It was sort of, as I said, setting it free. And to be retrieved at another time. Maybe it was the antenna, the signal to come back to the body. Yeah, fire stuff. I know you're not feeling well, James. If you tell me if you got somewhere, I'd love to have it. But if you want to just chill, that's cool too, because I know you're not at your best in the moment. Fire stuff is always. If you got more, go ahead. If not, we got Theo on the line behind you. You tell me. You choose.
I think I'll just sit back, but I'm going to sit in, and then I'll talk to you later if I have more and if there's time.
You were the best. Appreciate it very much. You know him, you love him. James Salcedo of Salcedo Paranormal, the paranormal expert of Troubled Minds, a dear friend of the show. The glue of the show, recognized, look at him, showing up even when he's sick here and filling in some, doing some duty. Appreciate it very much. Go give him a follow on all the places. Salcedo Paranormal, SALSIDO space paranormal. And do check it out, troubledminds.org/friends. Check out his books, check out his podcast, his radio show. He's doing good work over there. And I think he's over 700 episodes now on his podcast. And if you extrapolate that out to a few more years, he's literally going to be probably the preeminent space to find paranormal granular topics, because he's covered it all and continues to. And this is a beautiful place to go check it out and find out. Basically, I don't know, would you call James the penultimate paranormal expert of modern times? I might say that, but I think James would defer. But definitely go check out his podcast. Appreciate you, James. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for showing up and sitting in, even though you don't feel well. Always a pleasure, brother. Fire stuff. Expert deluxe. Experts extraordinaire. He hates being called an expert. That's why I'm teasing him. We're talking necromancy tonight. All manner of things. Black Moon and necromancy, rediscovering memory in the quantum quiet. Now, the quantum quiet, of course, is back to the idea of this black moon, which there's a black moon tonight on New Year's. I don't know. It felt like there was too much synchronicity here to not try and weave a narrative out of this. And so that's why if it seems a little disjointed, go read the write-up and you'll see that it's not quite as disjointed as I'm making it. There's a lost in translation of the human aspect of Michael Strange's fault. But it's a compelling narrative, I think. We'll get back to this in a moment. But actually, let me read this. So if memory exists in a quantum state, the challenge wouldn't be so much preserving the physical brain as it is maintaining the coherence of these quantum patterns. So modern attempts to preserve brains through cryogenics might be focusing on the wrong aspect entirely. Instead of freezing the physical structure, perhaps we should be developing methods to detect and preserve these quantum memory states, essentially achieving through technology what the Egyptians attempted through spiritual practices. And you see how this stuff kind of comes together a little bit, which again doesn't make sense that they just discarded the brain during the mummification process. Anyway, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Appreciate you guys popping in on New Year's Eve and spending your time and energy with us. Let's go to Theo in Philly. What's up, brother? You're on Troubled Minds. Happy New Year to you. How are you, sir? Go right ahead.
Oh, Happy New Year, Mike. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. No complaints out of me. Feeling good. Everything seems fine to me. I'm looking forward to 2025. How about you, sir?
No, I'm also looking forward to 2025. New Year's Eve is usually pretty quiet in Philadelphia compared to Mummers Day afterwards, but that's actually what I wanted to call about. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I don't think that this holiday really exists in most parts of the United States as far as I can tell. When I was researching it on Wikipedia, it said that it might exist in Newfoundland, in Canada, but I've never seen any evidence of a parade. But in Philadelphia, we have this holiday, which is New Year's Day, but we call it the Mummers Day Parade, where it's a very bizarre ritual that I haven't seen anywhere else. But basically, a lot of guys, especially in my neighborhood in South Philadelphia, spend their entire year preparing for this, where we have various mummers brigades. And these are kind of New Year's associations or clubhouses. But the entire event is you dress up, and most of the years the costumes are either the guys cross-dressing or dressing as some sort of harlequin. And it's a huge parade down Broad Street, down back to where I live on 2nd Street. And it's just really bizarre. It's kind of like Halloween. It's a very old tradition. From my research, it seems to stem back to the 17th century when the Swedes first immigrated here. They brought it with them, but there's not a lot of information on how this weird holiday came to be. But I just thought it was kind of something that's very interesting and sort of mysterious to share on this new year.
Yeah, that's an odd one. I've heard of it. I didn't know much about it. You just taught me pretty much everything I know about it. But if it is one of those bizarre things that kind of came out of nowhere, it almost sounds like a humiliation ritual in some capacity. Does that seem right? Or am I getting it wrong there?
You're not getting it wrong. Something about that does ring true. Because it is like a lot of like, you know, it's expensive to be part of a New Year's brigade. Like these people, they're not joining it cheaply. I'm around most of the clubhouses, and their like annual dues are usually somewhere north of $2,000. So people actually have like dedicated clubhouses, and they have different names. You know, like there's the Pirates, there's the Saturnalians. But it's just like kind of bizarre. But it's like very expensive, you know. And these private clubhouses, they function mostly as kind of like private bars a lot during the year. But I always thought it was very interesting, you know, like this is a lot of like kind of union, blue collar men. You know, they spend all of New Year's Day kind of like getting dressed up in dresses and dancing around. So there is definitely a certain aspect of it that is kind of a weird humiliation ritual. But I just think it's bizarre because like nobody knows, like on the internet, you can see that it maybe came from Sweden in the 17th century. But then also, I found a couple websites that said that it descended from Egypt, but they don't link anything back to the kind of like sources that they're citing when they say that. They just say that. But it's just a weird ritual, but it's kind of magical. You know, it is one of the biggest holidays in Philadelphia. People get really psyched for it, and they really go all out.
Yeah. That's wild. I had really don't know much about it, but it is odd how we have sort of these regional seasonal things. I mean, New Orleans is another one too that has some pretty wild stuff that trace back to hoodoo and some other things. It's wild, man. Like and that's just in this country. Like imagine the world over. There's all kinds of wild things that's part of it. Fire stuff. What else you got? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I had like the entire reason I called in is because there is the Mummer's poem, which is a very short poem that I wanted to share for you. But it's kind of like these mummers, like they're almost like, or they used to be almost trick-or-treating, you know, where you get dressed up in a very weird costume that seems to be almost mimicking some sort of spiritual creatures. And you dance around and go on a parade. And apparently back in the day, they used to go and ask for things door to door. So this is the poem that I did not write, but this is an old Mummer's poem that I wanted to share.
Sweet, let's hear it.
Here we stand before your door, as we stood the year before. Give us whiskey, give us gin, open the door and let us in.
Hell yeah. That resonates with me.
Just like, you know, like adult trick or treating, but like it's weird, you know, like just because they dress up in such vaguely, or I mean, not vaguely, kind of blatantly spiritual themes, and then they say like we've been here the year before, let us in again. You know, I don't know, something about that just like really, it's fascinating, creepy, and beautiful all at the same time. So yeah.
I definitely agreed, and so it does seem cyclical. It seems, you know, sort of spirits of old returning, and it has that definite paranormal vibe to it. Anything on that? And I got some questions for you regarding your take on some of this Egyptian stuff, because it seems, I don't know, makes my tinfoil tingle a little bit. Some of the things I brought up tonight. But anything else on what you just said, and then I got some questions for you.
Oh no, go ahead with the questions. I promise you, I have no intelligent answer.
Well, that makes two of us to be absolutely certain, and only because these questions are above our pay grade, as I always say. But doesn't it seem strange to you that I've been saying all night that in the, you know, that whole mummification process, they take all the great care to basically take the organs out and put them in these canopic jars and, you know, preserve them for basically as much as eternity will allow with the technology they had. But they just cast the brain aside. Doesn't that seem suspicious to you? Like we're missing a huge chunk of this aspect, regardless of what the Book of the Dead says. Maybe there's another maybe a missing document as part of this process. I don't know. How does that strike you? Doesn't it seem a little sus?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, you were talking earlier, and I just wanted to shout out. I had the word where you were talking about how they removed it through the nose. It's from the nasal pharyngeal passage. They would take a hook and shove it kind of like through your nose. And it was almost like a ice pick lobotomy, but with a hook. And that is how they would drag your like desiccated brain out of it. But yeah, I think the brain might not be as important as people think it is.
Okay, all right. So you're with them, just to cast it aside to save some of the other stuff. I got the word here too, so you described it in excruciating detail. Thank you for that. In ancient Egyptian mummification, embalmers removed the brain through a process called, known as, can I say this properly? Excerebration. Excerebration is the name of it. Excerebration.
That's a good word.
Yeah, that's a good word, right? Excerebration. I thought you were going to pull excerebration out of your back pocket and be like, damn, Theo. But you explained excerebration perfectly, because that's exactly what happens. This little blurb goes on to describe exactly what you did there. I don't know. It hits me the wrong way, because it is the center of our, I don't know, I guess maybe the center is probably the wrong word, but it is central, let's say, is probably better to describe it, central to the human process. So I don't know, to quote, discard it seems, interesting. Anyway, what else you got regarding any of this stuff? Lots of things we talked about and lots of angles. Go right ahead. We got about 2 minutes in case you got anything else. If not, that's totally cool. I appreciate you. As always, Happy New Year.
Yeah, no, just real quick, with regards to like the brain being worth or not worth anything, I don't know, the more that I read about it and the more that I listen to people that I respect talk about it, it seems like consciousness is not actually derived from the brain, more that the brain does seem to be some sort of receptor or tuner that is capable of picking up and localizing consciousness in a way that makes you think that you're an individual. But it really just strikes me as it may be more like a radio, So it's like, do you really care about like an old broken radio that was just capturing the airwaves? The radio wasn't making any actual content or talking at all unto itself. The radio was just picking up what was already out there and localizing it so that you could listen to it. So kind of in a way, it's like, the brain, like, is my brain that good at anything? I'm not sure, I think that it might be more picking up the consciousness that's already out there.
Right on. Let me read this to you before you go. So this is from the write-up. If you guys are interested, again, there's a more compelling narrative in the write-up, as always, because the Michael Strange filter tends to botch things. But the removal of the brain might not have been about preservation at all, but rather about liberation, as I was describing earlier. Freeing the quantum information from its physical prison so it could more easily transition to whatever state or realm they believed existed beyond death. In this light, modern efforts to preserve the physical brain might be as misguided as trying to preserve a radio to save the music it plays. And so that's exactly ties into what you were saying there. Exactly. So fire stuff. And that's exactly the point I stopped on that you probably hadn't read yet, but you were, we're on the same wavelength, brother. It's super weird, super wild. We're out of time. Final thought. You're the best. I appreciate you a lot.
No, that's just wild. I should start reading the write-ups more often.
All good.
But
all
yeah,
good.
that's wild. Glad to know that we're on the same brain wave, and maybe we can go get excerebated together. But yeah, no, good stuff.
or not.
So
Let's put that off to another lifetime. You're the best, brother. Appreciate you very much. Happy New Year to you and yours. And thanks for the call.
Yeah.
You are the best.
Happy New Year, Mike, and Happy New Year to everyone else.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. Have a great night. Appreciate that. That's Theo in Philly. You know him, you love him. The official poet of Troubled Minds. We're talking Black Moon Necromancy tonight. Rediscovering memory in the quantum quiet. We'll get to what the quantum quiet means because it's complicated. We got MJ in Virginia coming up. We got more from James if he's got it in your calls as well. Don't go anywhere. This is Troubled Minds. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, DLive, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking Black Moon Necromancy. Well, what is the Black Moon? Yeah, we're in a Black Moon. I don't know. This is not my forte. I'm not the astrologer. But apparently, we are kind of locked into this Black Moon pattern that happens every couple years. And when these things happen, with not just celestial timing, but also sort of these holidays like New Year's Eve, well, it makes me, I don't know. I don't want to say it makes my tinfoil tingle. It makes me speculative about sort of these, I don't know, ancient cosmic alignments in some capacity, right? And it got me thinking about a number of things. And it's, as better presented in the write-up if you guys want to go check that out. I do encourage reading this one in full. From top to bottom, it is there on Substack. It's going to be the top link once you go past the little dots down there and in the description. But so back to this. Now, let's reframe it all. We started with this idea of, could we ever retrieve memories from a dead person's brain? Terrifying. Necromancy. Basically, let's say we found a fossilized ancestral brain, a human brain from 100,000 years ago type stuff, right? A little bit creepy to think that maybe, just maybe, we'd be able to use through some burgeoning technology, some coming technology, the ability to pull this information out, right? Cool, amazing, also terrifying. And so this type of stuff makes me go, But then we've got those convergences, like I said, not just a Black Moon of December here. Oh my goodness gracious, disable your ad blocker. But we're talking about how the ancient Egyptians celebrated New Year as well. And there's this bit, right, which is pretty cool, where they did this, right? So the New Year's festival in ancient Egypt, known as Wepet Renpet, or the opening of the year, actually involved a few traditions still practiced today, such as giving presents to friends, standard stuff. But some customs were unique. Now check this out. For instance, the ancient Egyptians would bring images of deities out of temples so they could be regenerated by the sunlight. That's interesting. Okay. And so it got me thinking about the opposite. So they're bringing out veneration symbols into the sunlight to be recharged with energy, anyway, so here you go. The Egyptian practice of exposing their deity images to sunlight during Wepet Renpet, this is from the write-up, suggests they understood something fundamental about energy, consciousness, and regeneration that we might be overlooking in our modern pursuit of memory preservation. If they believed solar radiation could regenerate divine essence, perhaps they recognized that consciousness, and by extension memory, responds to and interacts with specific wavelengths of electromagnetic energy. Okay, which leads us into the brain stuff and the mummification stuff, but also it'll get us into the aspect of the Black Moon. Okay, we'll get to that. Hang tight. I know it's a long narrative. Totally cool. Read the thing if you want to get ahead of me, but it's wild. When I was putting this together, I was like, damn, this kind of makes some sense. But also all the disclaimers apply. There's no truth here. We're telling stories, okay? Back to what Brian Johnson said. Storytelling remains the most powerful technology. Prove us wrong. Come at me, bro. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Anything to add, James, before we go to MJ?
Two quick things. I think I might have forgotten one of them. Okay, never mind. I got it. First of all, I do believe that in the town where I live, there used to be, maybe there still is, a members parade. So I wonder in how many small towns across the U.S. these things happen still, but they just don't get a lot of press all around the country because they're in smaller towns. But going back to the idea of older or ancient practices going on, but maybe still not being promoted across the country, just because of various circumstances there. So I thought that was a neat little connection there. Also, in the chat earlier, Richard mentioned that in the novel Frankenstein, the brain that was used was actually damaged. So I don't know what that adds to that story or to what I was talking about, but maybe an important factor there.
Yeah, I would imagine if you're going to the scrapyard to salvage spare parts for your ride, make sure you don't get a damaged brain. You'll end up like the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz, which, by the way, I rewatched that over Christmas, which is super funny. And at the end, right, the Wizard of Oz solved it all with commercialism. He just gave them all some physical object and was like, you had it all along. Here's a medal. Here's a diploma. here's a this, here's a that. I was like, bruh. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Anyway, fire stuff. You're the best, James. Appreciate it very much. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at TroubleMinds.org. We're talking Black Moon Necromancy tonight. Rediscovering memory in the quantum quiet. And we will get to the quantum quiet before we finish tonight, I promise. It makes sense here. Because remember, there's two things happening. One, in ancient Egyptian New Year, they brought out their idols of their gods to regenerate in the sun. Okay? As if there's some sort of energy transference or something, recharge essence or whatever it is. And look, it may be nonsense, it may be nothing. But again, you got to sort of decouple from reality for these conversations. But keep that in the back of your mind as we get to this quantum quiet, because it gets weird and it does trace all the way back to the Black Moon, which is right now during New Year's for us. 702-957-1037. Thanks for being patient with me and my rambles. Let's go to MJ in Virginia. What's up, brother? You're on Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? Happy New Year, and go right ahead.
Happy New Year. A couple things were mentioned about the brain and scrambling the brain. And I started thinking about something. When you do an out-of-body, full out-of-body, and you're walking around your house or you're in your yard or you walk across the road, you can fully see, think, respond, comprehend everything as if you had a body. Okay? When we die, my experience has been working with people to help them cross over and find their way out of there because someone just stay lost. They don't let go of their living life because they can remember, okay? Because when you do it out of body, you're fully aware of everything. It's like, you're, like I said, you're in your body, you're thinking. Sometimes it's even more clear than if you're in your body. That's the interesting thing. And when you die, their brains aren't scrambled, so the memories are still in that organ, even though that organ's not, alive as such. They may not be able to let go of their living life because they still remember it. So if you go ahead and scramble the brain and, get rid of the memories, when you die, you're sent directly into the afterlife, not in the holding pen that you have when you first die. You're sent beyond that immediately because you have no way to cling on to your living life, you see. And I thought about that. And all the organs they put in their little urns and things to preserve don't do anything either. This type, they don't really do anything. But there's an electrical aspect to when you're doing an out-of-body to your own body. And even when the inductions would happen, there was an electrical current in the air. So electricity or the sun or something has to do with that may be a recharge or a way to connect with all that.
Okay, which makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, it is, for the woo woo in the modern times, the crystal people, they do. I mean, it's a thing, charging your crystals in the sunlight, also charging them in the moonlight, depending on the crystal, depending on the intention, depending on the purpose. Like, I know a little bit about it. I'm not an expert there. As usual, I know just enough to be dangerous in all capacities of Michael Strange things. So I'm not an expert in really anything, but the generalist kind of plays in this because you can kind of see some things from different disciplines and go, okay, it seems like some of these ancient ways might still make sense today. And what does that mean? We might not know yet. Or, of course, as usual, I also defer all the truth and say, well, maybe this doesn't make any sense at all, and there's no connection whatsoever. But, of course, we are storytelling. Back to where we started tonight. Brian Johnson, storytelling remains the most powerful technology. So fire stuff. What else you got, my man, regarding this? That doesn't seem strange, though. Like I said, back to what I asked James and what I asked Theo, throwing away the brain in that process, doesn't it seem, I don't want to say sacrilegious, but almost as if it's one of those things you should probably put in a jar too? I mean, it wouldn't be that much, right? Extra work to just put it in a jar with the guts, right? I mean, to be crude there.
Well, you consider the brain to be your hard drive in a computer. If you take out the hard drive, the computer really can't operate, can it? It can't do anything physical. You can't do much with it, even though it's still plugged in. Parts are still working. Stuff is running. But you have no way to regulate it because you can't see it on the monitor because you have no hard drive. And to me, the brain's pretty much the same thing. And when you talk about scrambling the brain, it just makes me feel like there's a part of there trying to kill connection so that whoever they mummified can't be connected to the living world. They send them on So there's no, because as long as they're, my feeling is, because we see ghosts, we see things, and we don't do that to our dead. They're in the coffin. For some reason, we seem to have ghosts around. Maybe doing that keeps that away. Maybe that's part of their religion, to keep the ghosts out. And I don't know if it's sacrilegious, because none of the organs can be used. I mean, seriously, they could just throw them all out. It's not going to matter. But at the same time, maybe it's their belief that doing that kills the connection between the living and the dead. And maybe that's their sole purpose in it. You would think you'd want to preserve it for the belief of something, or, respect and, loyalty and all this other things. But maybe at that point in time, most of your Egyptian leaders were not nice leaders. They weren't good. They were mean. They were to their subjects, in a very slave mannerisms. So they may have decided to do that when they did it, was to kill that off so it didn't linger. Let's say memory lingers in the air, and we pick up the memories, and maybe we have an idea that they had, and we carry it out, and that's not necessarily what they wanted. And to me, it's like when you sacrifice blood sacrifice, that's a cruel thing too. I don't get the blood sacrifice. That's more of a life force energy you're releasing to the gods to feed them. But it could be in that respect that they do that. They just scramble the brains out and make sure there is absolutely no connection, because maybe they have a fear of the afterlife coming after them.
Yeah, well said with the back, not just the Egyptians. You go back historically, and a lot of the rulers of old treated people terribly. It was, people were basically commodities and worse. And so not a metaphorical commodity, like you might make a case today or something, right? Like, you need a good workforce, like a metaphorical commodity, something like that. No, like people were actually property and commodities, and were lived and died under the whip and lash, and our ancients had a lot of things right, but they also had a lot of things wrong. Very, very, very wrong. Yeah, fire stuff. Regarding, let's say, what else do we have here? The necromancy, and sort of being able to take information out of a dead brain, which is where we started tonight, which is the whole conversation. Could we ever retrieve memories from a dead person's brain? What's your take on that physically, like it does sort of eventually, like you said, a hard drive in some capacity. Let's say we find a 1,000-year-old, very well preserved brain 10 years from now, when we have this technology or something, just kind of you make up the dates. Are we going to be able to kind of pull information out of the mind of Leonardo da Vinci or something? Like, does that seem wild to you that might be possible? Or do you think that's ridiculous to even consider?
I don't think it's ridiculous to consider. We do that with hard drives that have been in a fire, they've been tossed in water, and they can still retrieve some information of it, no matter how bad they've been treated, because of the computer, the programs that are in there. They can retrieve something out of it, no matter what you do. And my feeling is, if you can keep a brain alive, they take electrodes and stick it in the brain and make the brain react, and it shows up on a screen as the brain's reacting through an electrical shock. So my feeling is absolutely yes. Eventually they're going to be able to do that, and it'll get to the point where they can dig up an old brain and find that little, back door, like a computer has the back door. It's the 255.255.255.0.0 thing. You can go into any computer with that code, and it's a fact. Everybody has that code. You can do that. They're going to find a code eventually to hack the brain to do that. That doesn't seem odd or obscure at all.
Yeah, I think so too. Which again, as we get into the acceleration of these technologies, that's the thing that makes me go, okay, so not just autonomy comes into question, but also sort of our memories and our dreams. We've talked about this quite a lot. When you're able to kind of synthesize this as data, and then of course find the data of our ancestors, that's what excites me the most, by the way. I'm not looking forward to downloading Michael's dreams and saying, what was that about, Mike? I don't know. I don't know where the hippo came from. I don't know what that was. Okay. I don't know. And why was it flying? Don't ask me, right? Like, I'm not looking forward to that. That future is terrifying, because you can't even explain your subconscious in many cases anyway. And we've made those jokes in the past, but if you can actually sort of maybe find, ancient wisdom, like a shaman burial or something, and, I don't know, find the wisdom of the ancients directly. That's incredibly wild to me, that maybe this resonant energy kind of resides in the brain itself. Still, for some reason, it just resides because, like you said, the sort of the computer hard drive. Wild stuff. Great ways to look at this and think about it. What else do we got? What about I don't know. Take it wherever you like. We're just telling stories tonight. Anyway, storytelling remains the most powerful technology, as you know, or maybe disagree with. Go ahead. What you got?
Well, I was thinking about abductions too. I still have memories of that, but I can't access them. So what if I'm gone? They got my brain, and they start accessing those memories to find out what actually happened and where some of these beings are located. Was it the humans that did it? Was it extraterrestrials that did it? Who was it? And how did it happen? And can you get a visual on it? Can you watch it happen in real, in the brain's time? Can you watch that happen like on a video screen? You're watching the beings come in, they're taking them, this is all stuff going on. That's another aspect to do that. Now, the unfortunate part is they're going to try to connect the brain to the afterlife. Now, what happens if you start accessing those memories, and that person's been dead a while, but somebody that triggers them, and here they come back again. They're supposed to have crossed over, and now they're being brought back because you're trying to dig their memories up.
Yeah, I feel you. And this is, like I said, as this acceleration happens, I'm not sure this is going to be sort of the top of mind for science, but certainly somewhere down the line, this is going to come into play, and it's going to be enlightening, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think, like I always say, shame on us for sort of wanting to eschew the old ways for the new ways so quickly, because our ancestors, again, spent, blood, sweat, and tears coming up with holistic remedies, coming up with, ritual practices, coming up with, and, some of that stuff may seem frivolous, but also maybe it's not at all. And who really knows? And that becomes the question. Wild stuff, as you know. I got some stuff to get to. So final thought real quick, and then Happy New Year to you. Appreciate you staying up late with us and being you. Always a pleasure, my brother, and go right ahead.
No real final thought. Just Happy New Year. If you're out there, be careful, because it'll be 9 o'clock for you.
Only it's not even 9 yet. Not even 9 o'clock. I'm not going out. We're staying here. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. If anybody's going out, be careful, please. It's one of those nights where random things happen, and one little bad decision can change everybody's life forever. So absolutely. Well said, brother. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for staying up late with us. Thanks for the fire takes. As always, let me read you this to you real quick. Somebody said over on on Rumble, that every time MJ calls, it makes me rethink things. Rethink. Let me find this comment. I can't remember who said that. You guys are the best. Thanks for hanging on every word and being tuned into this. But somebody was leaving you a very nice compliment over there on Rumble. So you got a lot of fans here as well. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being part of this. Happy New Year to you and yours, and have a fantastic night, brother.
All right. Happy New Year to you and everybody else.
Thank you. Have a great one. MJ in Virginia. Bye. You know him, you love him. Good friend for a long time, and done a lot of that shadow work we've talked about. Done a lot of the sort of out of body. He's been a psychic for a long time. Done all manner of things, and that's why these experiences come into play as part of the larger conversation and talking to people. Because, yeah. Was it Puff? Was it Puff that said that? Okay. Anyway, you guys are great. Thanks again for all the amazing chat. Thanks for being cool and chill to each other. I appreciate you very much. We're talking Black Moon Necromancy tonight, rediscovering memory in the quantum quiet, I'm calling this. And let me read this real fast. So the removal of the brain, back to the ancient Egyptians, through the nasal cavity takes on a new significance when we look at that New Year's ritual where they brought their back to this, when viewed through this lens. Rather than simply discarding the organ, they might have been creating a direct pathway for solar energy to interact with the quantum information field they believed housed consciousness itself. They carefully positioned the body, they precisely aligned tombs, and the intricate burial rituals might have been designed to facilitate this energy transfer. So it was like they were freeing the organ of the brain. And Joey on Twitter X said this, historians say, let me start that way, the Egyptians believed the heart was the organ that held thought, memory, and consciousness, whereas the brain was, for the most part, just a mucus gland. Yeah, you got the mucus gland. That's a big mucus gland. Fire stuff. Appreciate the calls. Appreciate the comments. You guys are incredible. 702-957-1037. James, what do you got? Anything on that or anything else? And we got, I think, Herschel on the line, which we'll go to in a sec. or we'll wait a little bit. I'll ask him, but go ahead, James. Anything you got?
Yeah, just great calls from everyone. I was wondering about the well, first of all, the out of body. I can confirm too that in some of the experiences I've had, I walked. I did things that you would do in a physical body. So, and it's weird because you would think if you're not solid, then how do you walk on things? But it does happen, or at least it can happen. Also, I was thinking about the possible spiritual ramifications of activating or reactivating a brain from someone that had passed on before, because yeah, I can see that being problematic for in a lot of ways, for the individual being brought back, and then just for everyone else as well.
Well said. Amen. Great stuff. Let's go to Herschel in Arizona. What's up, brother? You're on Troubled Minds. We got about 3 minutes for you. However, we can wrap around if you like after the break, or I'm not sure how much you got, but go ahead. Welcome to the thing. Happy New Year. How are you doing tonight? Go right ahead.
Happy, merry. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes if I need more time or whatever. But so this thought, like, this is my view of like how, like, both Theo and MJ really got me going here. So how this looks to me, like, my view of consciousness is that there is like a singular source of consciousness, and the nature of consciousness is to continue. That's the nature of consciousness, to move forward and not end, and to manifest. So that's how we're here, because consciousness wants to manifest in realms where it can create and experiment and do things. So we're all like each of us are kind of a refraction of a singular source, in a sense. Like if you think of consciousness as light, then we're just refractions of light. We're not separate, different lights, but we're refractions of light. And then we have a thing that we call ego that helps us define ourselves as individuals, so that we can protect ourselves but also have that individual point of view, so that we can observe ourselves and observe consciousness observing itself. All right. Now, you mentioned things about Matt had a cornea transplant, and his eye acts differently. People have had organ transplants where they take on characteristics of people. So that could be something like the remnant of that consciousness, and that is memory, in a sense.
Yeah,
it's a remnant. It's a remnant of that, and it speaks to how you thought of it earlier. It speaks to superposition, that particle or a proton or whatever can be in different places at one time, and it can continue on in one way or in a form or something like that. So to me, that stands to reason that we would be able to get some sort of data out of a dead brain if we had the technology to do it.
So you think this is coming?
Like it you
think it's possible?
It might not be. It might not be a fully conscious being, but it would be a remnant of that, the vibratory nature of consciousness. It would be like a memory, in a sense, and it would probably be very like a very physiological and not an independent consciousness, but just a remnant of that. So that like brings the whole thing of kind of like ghosts and stuff to mind,
Yeah, I love it. Sort of a resonant echo of consciousness itself, sort of left in the flesh and bone of the human remain.
Yeah, I'd say that it's very possible. It's very likely.
Right on. You want to hang, or you got to cut? You tell me.
No, I'll say Happy New Year to everybody. Lots of smelling of the inside of the nose for 2025. Deep breaths, everybody. We're in for a nice wild ride. Happy New Year, everyone. Bye.
You too. Have a great night. Herschel, I'll tell you all about it when we get back. More Troubled Minds coming up. Don't go anywhere. We got Derek the Night Stalker coming up in your calls as well. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, DLive, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand on the Underground Media Network. Tonight, we're talking all manner of wild things like we do, but specifically this. What if the Egyptian practice of removing the brain during mummification wasn't primitive ritual, but sophisticated quantum technology? Now, what the hell does that mean? Yeah, exactly. Read the write-up. It does a little bit better than I do, the old meat suit Michael, kind of butchering things sometimes. But I want to drop this because this is an important part of this conversation, okay? We're talking about that whole bit of, hold on, let me find this real fast. There we go. There's that part. Okay, so recognize, we talked about New Year's. Happy New Year's to everybody. But we talked about the actual ancient Egyptians celebrating New Year. And they dragged out their veneration statues and portraits or whatever they had created of the gods to recharge during New Year's in the sunlight. Okay? So check this out. So while they brought their deity statues into the sunlight for regeneration during this Wepet Renpet, which is called, the translation is the opening of the year in ancient Egyptian, the absence of moonlight during a black moon could have served an equally important but opposite purpose, which brings all of this together. These moments of quantum quiet, all right, when lunar electromagnetic interference is at its minimum, might have been seen as optimal times for preserving or transferring consciousness, which goes back to the brain, removing the brain to set it free, okay? And maybe these ritual aspects of timing, celestial timing in particular cases. So back to the timing. The precise timing of Egyptian death rituals, particularly the removal of the brain and placement of the body, might have been planned around these astronomical events. Again, going out on a limb, telling stories, nothing to back this up, just some weird cosmic musings here. But the alignment of the black moon would create unusual gravitational conditions that could theoretically enhance quantum entanglement at a macro scale. Exactly what would be needed if they were attempting to preserve consciousness in a quantum state. And so you see, not casting the brain away as part of the mummification ritual, all theorycraft here, they were setting it free in a cosmic space that was perfectly aligned to let it go back into the quantum foam itself. I don't know. Wild stuff. You tell me. Love to hear your thoughts on this. 702-957-1037. That kind of brings it full circle. It's better in the write-up. Like I said, read it straight through on the write-up. This is a mind-blowing one. If you follow the dots, like I said, the meat suit Michael Strange sometimes botches these ideas, but I'm doing my best, as always, as you should do your best in 2024 and 2025. Happy New Year. Let's go to Derek the Night Stalker. What's up, brother? You're on Troubled Minds. Thanks for popping in. I know you're busy as hell over there. Happy New Year to you. What is on your mind tonight? And go right ahead, sir.
Happy New Year. What's going on, British? Yeah, busy night. So I don't have a ton of profound stuff. It's I'm coming in a little bit late, and we're shorthanded, which I didn't realize, and it's a big truck, so kind of scrambling. But wild stuff. Great calls, everybody. For the moon thing, that just popped in my head as you're reading it, so I'll get it out of the way. It makes me think, and to tie it into what Theo was talking about with the getting rid of the brain. I think it probably could be something like that, kind of getting rid of the antenna that tunes your subjective bit of consciousness back into the body or whatever, to kind of free that space. Like maybe they didn't understand it entirely, and they just kind of knew that the brain was picking up consciousness, and they wanted to free consciousness and allow it to go back into that quantum foam or whatever. So they were destroying the brain for that way. And then I'm not sure about the moon thing, other than like the lunar energies have very like etheric type of soul energy that's also tied to like water and the movement of energies and that type of stuff. And also conspiratorially gets tied into like the soul trap or whatever. And if anybody who watched Moonfall, the moon is, a spoiler alert, the moon is this AI soul trap thing or whatever. So what if kind of they were doing it when there was no moon like hazards to like stop that journey, so you don't get like tangled up in the kind of fishing net of the moon. That's like kind of when the moon's out, it's gonna get kind of like a dolphin stuck in the net. You know, that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm following you. Yeah, it's a weird thing, right? Like, and again, what do we know regarding that sort of resonant energy? And it is, kind of woo-woo to talk about charging crystals in the sunlight and the moonlight and this type of stuff, which is fine. Like, if you think whatever nonsense, fine, whatever, that's cool. But also, I do wonder if there's sort of a larger contextual miss that we're kind of not doing, because we're like, sunlight brings the crops and the moonlight brings the romance, and that's it, right? That's what we got. Yeah. But it seems like there's going to be quite a bit more to it, probably when we figure out everything, which is coming soon to a reality near you. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So maybe some kind of like soul trap, or just some kind of just avoiding the trip wires on your way out of the kind of soul pocket that the Earth is, this kind of soul gravity well. But I'm not sure. Today, I was like real in and out of naps, real nappy day, and but I remembered some of my dreams when I woke up. And again, this is a weird thing, but like I've never seen Twin Peaks all the way through, but it's a real dreamy show, and he gets like information, in like the main character gets information that can use in the real world from his dreams and stuff. And the vibe of the show is really weird. And I've been like leaving it on as I'm falling asleep. So I've probably watched like most of the first season, each episode probably like 3 or 4 times at this point, but all out of order. So it's all happening very dreamlike. And like when I do fall asleep with it on, it's giving me a lot of dreams, and I remember my dreams. And I don't know if David Lynch intended that to be the case, but it's happening. It's like happening a lot when I toss it on. So
that's wild. Like
it is weird.
Could you intentionally embed dreams with an artwork? People have said it with us. Who said that? Somebody said that when they put us on, they go to sleep, they have bizarre dreams.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And the whole vibe of the show is very dreamy. It's like a very dream-like quality. It kind of it's a nice kind of warm blanket into the dream space or whatever. But and just the one major dream I remember, I was kind of stuck like in this frozen pond, and I was like coming up to the top, and I realized, oh, it's all frozen over and I can't get out. But there was like a little hole. I was trying to like breathe through the hole, and I wasn't really that scared. It was more like a nuisance. Like, oh, here we go. Kind of like rolling my eyes in the dream. That's the big thing I remember. But like it's lingering with me today. And like somebody mentioned like a frozen pond in a TV show I was watching before I came to work and stuff. It's like, oh, that's weird. But it makes me think like, because consciousness isn't necessarily probably not stored in the brain, what if our memories aren't stored in the brain? And like, what are dreams really for? I mean, an aspect of it is probably some type of playground. An aspect of it is probably some giving like our waking mind of rest. An aspect of it is probably processing the unconscious information that like came into our head or whatever. But what if we're kind of storing, what if if the dream realm is some type of shared space? What if there's like some type of Akashic record-esque cloud space where we're like depositing some memories and leaving them in the dream space? Because like, when you try to think of something and you know it, and you're like trying to access that memory, like, oh, let me think, and it comes to you. What are you really doing? Where are you going in your mind to find that information? Where is it? Is it deep in your brain stem? Are you digging deep inside your brain? Probably not. But are you like, where are you going? Like, and I have no idea. I don't really have any theory. But what if we are kind of the clearing of the cookies aspect of sleeping and dreaming? What if they're stored somewhere? And what if rather than like using the brain or using an organ or the body to access the dream space, to access the memory space, what if we can like, when we do figure out more maps for the other realms, we realize that, oh, there's like a whole file cabinet for everybody's lives that we can just go and access it. If we know the right door in the dream world, we can access it via the dream space,
Yeah. Back to those brackish realities we talk about. Like, where does one sort of end and where does one begin, and where is that liminal space between the two, which is wild. And of course, in this case, that's really at the heart of this conversation, because we're talking about the minds of our ancient ancestors, and surely they didn't disappear. I mean, the materialist would say, that's lost knowledge forever. And where tragically I kind of agree, but also what if it's not? What if there's a larger technology that has all of that categorically filed away as you're describing, and maybe we just have no concept of how to access it just yet? I'm hopeful. It's a big ask. It's a big hope there, but I do wonder if human knowledge and that zeitgeist, that temporal zeitgeist we're always talking about, actually still exists in some capacity.
Yeah.
And back to where we started tonight, of course, with the idea of, could we ever retrieve memories from a dead person's brain? It's multifaceted. It's a simple question, and it seems very material, but it's also not. And so I don't know, lots of wild parts here, but yeah, go right ahead.
Did you ever see Avatar, the James Cameron movie?
Yeah.
The cartoon.
Wait. Avatar.
Blue Cat, space.
Yeah. The big planet. I saw the first one. I didn't see the reboot, but yeah, I saw the first one. I thought it was very good.
So they have that weird like soul tree that they have, and they can like put in their tail, like the same tail that they use to ride a horse is also the same like kind of tail that they use to have sex, which is weird. And they cut out that scene. It's not, you can't watch that scene on Disney anymore. It's like only if you saw it in theaters, because they like put their tails together, and it's real weird. But like it's the same tail that they use to access this memory tree, and kind of when they die, they like absorbed again by that tree. And they're more of like a indigenous species that's in tune with nature, so it's more of a depositing all of your essence and your memories, and then when like people access it again, it's you're not accessing each like ego of a person, you're accessing kind of the divine totality of all wisdom of the culture that's kind of stored in this tree. But that's like a tangible kind of memory hard drive that they have baked in their society, and it's baked into their like biology of the planet and everything. But what if we have a similar type of thing, but it's a non-local, more of like a cloud version of that, which is basically the Akashic Record. They're kind of a non-local place that we're storing our dreams, and what if eventually we can kind of access that. Potentially it could be like DNA could play a role in it. It could be kind of like each individual kind of key to access that whatever that memory space is, whatever. And the Dune mythology and stuff, like I haven't finished Dune Prophecy yet, the TV show, but they're getting real into like the Bene Gesserit kind of going back into their DNA memory. So like the people who haven't watched Dune, like the Bene Gesserit are the kind of this witchy religious group, like pseudo-religious group that has these kind of mystical abilities, and amongst them is like to access the DNA of their entire like familial ancestral line, so they can go back in this altered state with the help of the spice and see and access the memories of their grandmother and their great grandmother and so on and so on. And what makes the idea of creating the Kwisatz Haderach, which is like Paul Atreides and stuff, is that there's going to be, they believe, with enough like DNA tinkering through generations, like thousands of year plans, that they can create the right DNA that will be able to access not just the one female line of memories, but the male line too. And then with that, we'll have like, it's like a time wave zero for Dune. Will you be able to access all memories through all of your ancestral history, and you'll be essentially like you'll pop out of time and can know everything, be able to like see the future and the past and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, become like a biological singularity, because in Dune they've banned all the computers because computers are bad. But yeah, a biological singularity is an interesting thing, because it means, as you're describing, you tap into the entirety of your ancestry, both sides. Wild, I love that.
Yeah. So what if that's kind of how, like, it's less about the brain per se and more about what if we find DNA, and then DNA gives us kind of the conduit to access one subjective person's memories, rather than like to tap into the entire like Akashic sea of memories. It's kind of like you'll like kind of metaphorically click on one DNA key, and that will open up the one specific file that's stored in that like junk DNA or whatever it is that we don't know what DNA does, that kind of stuff. Maybe that could be a way, or like, yeah, I don't know, or some kind of like psychic connection where I'm not sure if like necessarily all of your I just don't believe necessarily memories are stored in the brain like a hard drive like that per se. It could be, but I'm not sure if they are. But what if just the DNA or the biology, like the biological material of the person, is able to give some type of psychic intuition that we don't have really words for, and potentially we can figure out a technology with that consciousness ability that will allow some type of like Bene Gesserit style. I touch the brain of like
Ramses the
Da Vinci.
yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
And then I know all that stuff. Maybe AI can do that in some weird way. This is like technology that we don't have yet, but just kind of speculating. Like, what if how would you use a biological conduit to access an ethereal storage space type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know.
We did do a show on this, by the way, kind of in the periphery, but it was in the dream realm, talking about the dreams of our ancestors through epigenetics.
Mm-hmm.
It was called, I think it was just called Dreams of Our Ancestors or something like that. But I mean, these themes keep recurring because, of course, there's only so much, right, human limits to the imagination when you talk about science and sort of where we're headed and where we've come from. But that's why it's up to us to dream harder, because let's make science catch up as fast as possible. Because recognize, I said this last time too, science fiction is shrinking. Like when you write a science fiction now, like a novel about the future, 5 years pass and you wrote about 100 years, but now half of that stuff has all come true in 5 years. So we need to dream harder, folks. Tandem dream harder. Let's do it. What else you got? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, that's basically it. Just the idea of finding an ancient brain and hooking it up, especially to some kind of crazy quantum computer or whatever, is trippy, and I like that idea. And potentially there is some type of hard drive mechanism to it, but it just doesn't really jive as well with the idea that the brain is merely a receiver, and potentially, and so more so you need to like kind of create a new type of antenna that will allow you to like tune through the etheric noise the same way a radio will tune. Like we're able to navigate to the different stations. And right now we don't have the radio for that, So maybe, I really don't know. And maybe the antenna maybe the DNA is kind of that antenna. So, I don't know. There's trippy stuff, but
so it's all good.
It's really kind of the fusion of technology and consciousness, like we always talk about stuff. But just it gets trippy because we're trying to talk about how do you navigate this ethereal space, but we don't have any clue how this space works. Where do our memories go? Like when you're like getting in a hypnotic state, are you kind of just getting to this like latent foggy dream world that allows you to freely access your own personal storage drive, or are you more so accessing a liminal state that allows you to access this shared memory space, or this like shared dream space? We don't know, are dreams shared or are dreams subjective, or are they both, or whatever? And what is happening? Are we depositing stuff? Is that kind of what it's for? It's like it's kind of the quantum computing power of our mind that we don't need to store every single little moment to moment of information in our brain because there's too much processing power. So we're able to, like the same way Willow is able to deposit different pieces of an equation throughout the entire multiverse and then pick it back up once it's all solved. Maybe that's kind of what we're doing. We're depositing memories throughout this kind of etheric memory space, and then when we need to access it, that's kind of what we're doing. When it feels like we're digging through our brain and stuff. So how would somebody access that? Maybe some kind of like tuning fork, like a DNA that will allow you to kind of vibrate your way back into that space. I don't know. I'm rambling. I don't know what I know. So
no, you're good.
Free flowing, but
fantastic free flow. So regarding that, so that would explain a lot about the collective subconscious or the collective unconscious. Is that we share not just the Joseph Campbell, the Carl Jung type stuff, but there's also the temporal aspect of it and the noosphere. We've talked about this a lot, and how this stuff kind of comes together, and we're all kind of like buckled in the same space, and it everything plays, all the doom and the media news cycles, conversations like this, it all plays, and it's all sort of vying for attention, vying for ideas, vying for supremacy, dare I say. And so all of that sort of mixes into this big mess of something you can't quite put your finger on. We call it the zeitgeist, but we're all experiencing that and even drawing information from it and giving information to it. It's one of those bizarre things where you can't really say, well, this is the thing. Well, it's an ambiguous thing, but it's definitely us with this human resonant energy, not just shared, singular shared. And of course, we're talking about in the temporal space with the ancient Egyptians and the sort of drawing information from a dead brain, which is incredibly weird. But well, welcome to it. Welcome to it. Yeah, as you know, we're just about out of time. We got to 5 minutes left or so. If you got it, I know you're busy. You tell me what you got, but go right ahead.
I mean, it could. I think there is probably some value in having like a tangible skull of a person or a brain of a person, something like that. And it seems like Skull and Bones and different secret societies are actively pursuing famous, ancient, smart brains or important brains and stuff. I'm blanking on who they have, but there's like a famous like Native American warriors that they have, and of like a early 1800s philosopher that they had, or something like that. But they actively go out and look for remnants of these people. So potentially there is some type of importance in conduit that having the biology of the person or the DNA of the person allows you to access some kind of stored memory space. I really don't know, but we don't know at all what the DNA does, what the junk DNA is. It could all be that, or it could be like, yeah, I really don't know. I don't know. There should be stuff. So I'll leave. So I don't start rambling too much.
You're the best. I don't know either. Happy New Year to you and yours, brother. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for peeling out time from work. I know it's very difficult. Sometimes the things just go haywire, and you're a pro at doing both. You're the best, brother. Appreciate it very much. Happy New Year. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.
Thank you. Hell of a year, brother. And next year's gonna be even better.
Absolutely. To 2025. Here we go. The energy.
For anybody listening, for like Dawn and stuff, I received a new laptop for Christmas this year. So I'm back in the game, and thank you for all the times you offered to help me out and all that kind of stuff. But it happened. So 2025, here we go, to the moon. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everybody.
To the moon. You're the best. Merry, happy holidays. Derek, the Night Stalker, you know him, you love him. Again, go give him a follow. Night Stalker, Stocker. He calls us stalking at night from a grocery store. For real. Look, as usual, right? We have a terrible problem judging people, right, based on what they do or where they're at in their life or whatever. But you recognize the best grocer in the entire multiverse, the known multiverse. He peels out some time for us to call and light our brains on fire as well. It's not an easy thing. You guys peel out some time from work and do something like that. It's incredible. Thanks again to Derek. Happy New Year to him and his and you and yours and everybody out there. Go give him a follow. Links in the description. troubledminds.org/friends. And it says follow Derek. Follow the Night Stalker. Please do that. And while you're there, by the way, I didn't tell you about Herschel. Herschel as well. Appreciate the call, brother. We kind of did the quick end of the segment there, and I said I'll tell you all about Herschel when we get back, and I didn't. But do go follow Commercial Herschel. Word is on the street he's got a new book coming out, and very creative guy. He's here on the network with us. Smell the Inside of Your Nose. Do It Right Now is the name of his podcast and his radio show. And Commercial Herschel at Substack, and you can find him there. Link will be in the description as well. troubledminds.org/friends. That says follow Herschel. Fire stuff. Look, I don't know. We have a knack for some reason. There's we're call us stupidly lucky of just attracting incredibly smart people. Weird, right? Weird. Maybe not. Maybe we're maybe there's something cosmic at play. I don't really know. Just real quick to finish this, and we'll get a final thought from James and we'll wrap it. But back to that quantum quiet and how this fits, right? Which is the entire point of this. We have the sun ritual of the ancient Egyptians drawing out the veneration of not just their portraits or, let's say, stone effigies of their ancient gods to charge on New Year's in the sun. But this quantum quiet, back to this. So while they brought their deity statues into the sunlight for regeneration during Wepet Renpet, which is the New Year celebration of ancient Egyptians, the absence of moonlight during a black moon could have served an equally important but opposite purpose. And I'm tying this into this consciousness aspect. And these moments of quantum quiet, when lunar electromagnetic interference is at its minimum, might have been seen as optimal times for preserving or transferring consciousness. Now check this out. This is where the plot thickens. The precise timing of Egyptian death rituals, particularly the removal of the brain and the placement of the body, might have been planned around these astronomical events. Or not, right? The alignment of a black moon would create unusual gravitational conditions, theoretically, that would enhance quantum entanglement at a macro scale. I said this before, but it gets deeper. Exactly what would be needed if they were attempting to preserve consciousness in a quantum state. This adds another layer to our understanding of their sophisticated death practices. They weren't just preserving bodies, they were timing complex consciousness transfer rituals to specific astronomical conditions that created optimal quantum states. You get me? The combination of solar regeneration during Wepet Renpet and the quantum preserving conditions of a black moon suggests they understood consciousness manipulation at a level we're only beginning to approach with our modern technology. And back to the black moon, and we'll wrap this. The rarity of black moons, occurring only every couple of years, might explain why certain Egyptian burial rituals seemed more elaborate or successful than others. Perhaps these optimal conditions were reserved for pharaohs or high priests, whose deaths could be anticipated in time to these celestial events. or maybe not. This timing, of course, would have been not seen as mere superstition, but as a crucial technical requirement for their consciousness preservation technology. There you go. James, anything to add before we wrap this? Happy New Year to you and yours, brother. Feel better and all the rest. Go right ahead. We got about a minute left.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great calls from everyone. I also want to thank you, Mike, for this show, because thanks to you, I've met a lot of people, and I now have a co-host for Salcedo Paranormal. Returning guest that is now with me just about every weekend. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer. And I just, it's been amazing talking with you all. And thank you, everyone, for supporting me and my show. And I wouldn't have had all that support if it wasn't for this one.
Right on. Appreciate that. Congratulations. Shout out Jen, the Arcane Observer, troubledminds.org/friends. Follow all these amazing people. Fire Stuff, you're the best, brother. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for staying up late, even though you're sick, and feel better tomorrow. All the positive emotions of to Troubled Minds fam, send them to James. He's going to feel like $1 million tomorrow morning. You're the best, brother. Have a great night. Appreciate you very much. Let's wrap it. Let's get the hell out of here. You guys know the drill, right? The ball's dropping. The ball just dropped. The balls are dropping. The balls are everywhere. Happy New Year on the East Coast. I know you just had that New York moment in a New York minute, but we'll talk on beyond the New York minute. Happy New Year to our East Coast fam. Everybody else in the other weird time zones all over the place. I know Lily in Australia, you guys already had it. You weird time travelers, New Zealand down there, you're tomorrow already. You weird tomorrowers. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Let's make 2025 the best we can, and let's stay positive. That's that. 2024 is a wrap. Come on, Snake. Dude, what's up, Herschel? Yeah, you guys know the drill. If you want to help Troubled Minds, help our friends, troubledminds.org/friends. Please help all those amazing people down there. Like I said, if you should be on that list, we'll get you on that list. Just send me an email, troubledmindsradio@gmail.com. And I don't know. Like I said, thank you for that. Michael sent me, not the Michael in the chat there, or another Michael that listens sent me an email. Shout out Michael there. He's like, I've been binging these podcasts, Mike. You're great. Appreciate it very much. You're not crazy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing that I'm not crazy. And thank you for listening. And thanks for being part of it. If you guys got you want to talk to the manager, troubledmindsradio@gmail.com. You want to give me a piece of your mind and tell me how terrible I am or how great I am, or anywhere in between, all the spectrums play, troubledmindsradio@gmail.com. Please do that. Help our friends, troubledminds.org/friends, all the rest of that. If you want to help us directly, please spread the word. Let people know a conversation is happening where we're not going to talk about politics. We're not going to talk about who to vote for or what's happening in Congress, or, it might come up once in a while as a periphery discussion, but for the most part, that's not what this is about. This is about all the other things that get missed. Yeah, pseudoscience, fine. Speculation, wild speculation, fine. Whatever you want to kind of label that as, I don't care. Because there are narratives that need to be pressed forward, and if we're not doing it, who's gonna? That's it. You guys are the best. Thanks for being part of this. If you want to help Troubled Minds directly, spread the word. Old school word of mouth beats the algorithms any day. And all the links are in the description. If you want to, drop a few bucks here or go buy some merch, all the stuff is there. Troubled Minds hoodies up on the store, troubledfans.com. It's all there. Appreciate each and every one of you that has supported this show in any way. Every little way, every granular way helps, because if you're not doing it, we aren't growing. And I'm seeing it. I'm seeing people come in. Shout out Squigs. I know he just left on the Discord, but yeah, thanks for sending your friends our way. And stay out of my algorithms, says Herschel. As we finish, it goes exactly like this. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. Let's make 2025 the best it can be. And it goes exactly like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night.